You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 AM, a CBS station.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. You're listening to us on CBS radio station 1580 AM in the Washington, D.C. area, or you're streaming us on the web, WMCLive.com, where you can also find links to podcasts of all our previous shows. And we want to hear from you. Tweet us at hashtag WMCLive or email at womensmediacenterlive@gmail.com. Now, I have got to start with a shout-out to Texas State Legislator Wendy Davis, Democrat from Fort Worth, for her now famous filibuster a few days ago on behalf of a woman's right to choose. Go, Wendy Davis! Okay, that felt good. The guests on today's show range from a woman who teaches women investors how to do so with diversity principles, and a woman who works to move this country out of keeping company with Iran and Saudi Arabia, that is, all of them are death penalty countries, to a woman who knows that to care what we eat means to care what we grow, and last, a woman who is networking feminist geeks all over the planet. But first, we have to go inside the headlines. Now, perhaps like you, this last week or so, I was elated at the Supreme Court's decision that overthrew Defense of Marriage Act and also let California free. But I was devastated that the same court gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the single most important piece of civil rights legislation. But to go inside those headlines for me means a story of three women, or two stories of three women. One woman was a housewife. She'd dropped out of high school. She'd gotten married and then divorced and married again and had kids and divorced and married a third time to a Teamsters business agent and had children and decided she'd go back to school as a reentry housewife. She joined the Unitarian Church, and then she joined the NAACP, and then she started to watch television in a different way. She was appalled by the television images of the attacked marchers on March 7, 1965 at the famous or infamous Edmund Pettus Bridge. That demonstration became known as Bloody Sunday. She started taking part in demonstrations. Although she was a European American, she felt that it was everybody's fight. And she told her husband that she was going to go to Selma, Alabama, and she was going to be part of a march, and she was going to help voter registration. And indeed, she did. And at one point, she helped drive local marchers and voter registration volunteers back to the homes where we were staying because you weren't allowed to stay in hotels. And she was driving with Leroy Moten, a kid, 19 years old, an African-American guy. And as they were driving along, a car forced them off the side of the road, and then another car with 4 Klansmen drove up and aimed directly at her and shot her twice in the head. Of course, her car crashed. Of course, she died instantly. Leroy, although he was covered with blood, was not shot. While the Klansmen inspected the car, decided he was dead, left him for dead, and left the scene. Then he got up and raced for help. But it was too late. She was gone. The Klansmen were tried. Everybody knew who they were. It was an open secret. And an all-white jury was selected. The defense attorney in the trial called the woman a white nigger in order to sway the jury. And it was a successful attempt because, in fact, the jury found for a mistrial. And a few days later, the 3 accused killers who were left were part of a Klan parade that closed with a standing ovation for them. Then there was another trial, another all-white jury, and this time an acquittal. And then the feds stepped in. You see, Justice Roberts, there's a reason for federal legislation. So the feds got the Klansmen on civil rights violation when Alabama wouldn't indict on murder, or rather wouldn't find them guilty on murder. And although her fate, the woman's name was Viola Liuzzo, her fate was mild compared with that of suffering African Americans in and out of the civil rights struggle, because she, like me, was European American. I felt for her. I identified with her. I identified with her fear, because I remember driving in a car. It was in Mississippi, not Alabama, and there were 2 guys and 2 of us girls, and we were all kids, 1 white, 1 black guy, and 1 white, 1 black girl, and suddenly there was a car in front of us, and 1 behind us, and 1 on either side of us, and I could taste the adrenaline in my mouth, and nobody said anything, but the air was thick with fear. And I remember thinking, in the characteristic way of an 18 or 19-year-old, whatever I was, I'm going to die without making love. I'm going to die a virgin, not even knowing what it is. But I didn't die. They let me live. They peeled off, and we were safe. She wasn't. And when the justices gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965, for me, they killed Viola Liuzzo all over again. Then there's another story. One of 2 other women, Edie Windsor and Thea Spire. And when they met, it was electric. And Thea proposed with a circular diamond pin, no less. They went all over the world together. When Thea got sick, Edie quit her job and took care of her. 42 years after they started dating, inside a Toronto courtroom, Edie and Thea finally were legally married. But when Thea died, Edie was denied rights because this federal government didn't view the marriage as legitimate. And Edie took a stand and fought it. And she went on to continue fighting it until a few days ago, when the court's decision to rule Defense of Marriage Act unconstitutional came down. History springs always from such small stories. It's not only that the personal is political, the political is personal, too. Our first guest, Natalia Oberti Noguera, is the founder and CEO of Pipeline Fellowship, an angel investing boot camp for women philanthropists, in order to increase diversity in the U.S. investing community and to create capital for women social entrepreneurs. What's not to like about that? Natalia, welcome to Women's Media Center Live.
Thanks for having me, Robin.
You have founded a remarkable thing in the Pipeline Fellowship. This is much needed, and now that you've created it, it seems like the nose on our face. Well, of course, but I'm sure when you were devising it, that it was an uphill struggle. The Pipeline Fellowship, your mission statement reads on the website, trains women philanthropists to become angel investors through education, mentoring, and practice. And your participants commit to invest in a woman-led, for-profit social venture in exchange for equity and a board seat. And you conduct an investing boot camp for women philanthropists. So how did this come to be? You're the founder and the director, so you're the one to ask.
I love how you mentioned that, in some ways paraphrasing, hindsight is 20/20. I like to say that I came about launching the Pipeline Fellowship through reverse market research. I had the opportunity to launch a network of women social entrepreneurs in New York City in 2008, and I grew the group from about, I'd say, 6 women to over 1,200 within 2 years. And I kept having the same conversation over and over again. And the gist of it was how hard it was for these women social entrepreneurs to secure funding for their for-profit social ventures. They kept going to philanthropists who heard their ideas and were so excited to help them change the world, asking, where can I donate? Where can I write the check? As soon as they heard that these businesses were not 501c3s, they would stop the conversation, let the woman entrepreneur know, come back once you have launched your sister nonprofit, and then we can, discuss further.
Isn't that interesting? It's so interesting. It's almost as if they want to ghettoize women in what they consider do-goodness, and not in what they consider the hard work of business, which is boys' work.
Well, I'm a queer Latina who's half Italian, half Colombian, so I have been comfortable with ambiguity for a long time. And my sense is also the comfort level of keeping things in the binary. You either do good or you do well. And the hybrid venture very much is that business model that is looking to do good and it's looking to do well. And my light bulb moment really came when I realized that, as usual, entrepreneurs are ahead of the curve. They're coming up with these hybrid business models, and we need more hybrid investors who get them. And that's why I launched the Pipeline Fellowship, to create more hybrid investors who happen to be women, who would be interested and keen on investing in women-led for-profit social ventures in exchange for equity.
How wonderful. I mean, that's really so smart. I was just looking at stuff I pulled from the website, the criteria. The Pipeline Fellowships, we have to do something about the fellow. I've been working on that for 40 years to try and come up with some alternative word. The Pipeline Fellowships' three main criteria are meeting one of the accredited investor definitions, interest in group learning model, and passion for philanthropy and or social change. Whoopee. And for most
yes.
for most of your people, this is their first angel investment.
That's correct. And I'm a huge believer in diversity in many ways, as I mentioned early on, by outing myself as a queer Latina. And so just to give you a sense of our, since launching our first Angel Investing Bootcamp, April 2011, we have grown to 50 alumni. We're on track to doubling that graduate size within the next few months.
Wow.
And I'd say in terms of the demographics of our alumni, they range between late 20s to over 60, multicultural, multi-ethnic, coming from different backgrounds and professional experiences, such as, we've had a baker, we've had a dentist with her own private practice, we've had consultants, accountants, tech startup employees, established entrepreneurs, really the gamut in terms of where people are coming from in terms of their industry. And what connects them is that interest in supporting women entrepreneurs.
And intergenerational as well. You're intergenerational, which
and that is very much purposeful, because my whole take was it's so important to get people who are coming at it from different places in their lives, and they're able to share different perspectives. So the way that the program works is that we have three main components: education, mentoring, and practice.
Mm-hmm.
The boot camp goes, the duration is a 6-month program, and in terms of education, we hold workshops on topics ranging from valuation, portfolio strategies, measuring impact. All of the workshops are led by experts, whether they be seasoned angel investors, impact investing professionals, lawyers, and venture capitalists. In terms of the mentoring, is one of my favorite components. We match our fellows with experienced angel investors so that they can share what I like to say their best mistakes, because that's what we really learn from. And several of our mentors are white guys on purpose, because I'm interested in integrating our fellows into the predominantly white male networks out there versus creating a silo.
You've thought everything through. It's brilliant.
Thank you. I'm a systems thinker. And we really, on that note, before sharing, the educational component, I'm a huge believer in this whole, the lean startup methodology that we see in the tech startup world, which is, fail fast, iterate. And that's really our own ethos at the Pipeline Fellowship. We're a lean machine, and we integrate feedback, and then, we go back at it with iterations.
And go on. Go ahead.
I was going to say, in addition to the educational and the mentoring component, we also have a practical component. I'm a huge believer in learning by doing. So one of our signature events is a pitch summit. We issue out a call for applications from women entrepreneurs so that they can apply to present at a pitch summit. And the fellows own the entire selection process. I like to call them angels in training. We usually have about 10 angels in training within one cohort, and they go review the applications. As a group, they select 8 to 10 entrepreneurs to present at the pitch summit. After the pitch summit, they select 3 companies to move forward to due diligence. So as they're learning how to perform due diligence, they actually have real companies to apply lessons learned, and ultimately they select one company to invest in as a group.
Wow, you've really thought it through in a very careful manner. I would wager, too, that since you've gone to considerable effort quite properly to ensure a really diverse mix in age and race and ethnicity and experience and you name it, I would bet then that the women entrepreneurs who actually get philanthed, to coin a verb, when you're philanthropists, after the training, I bet that there's diversity in their funding that they get, in their investment, so that it's a trickle through, not trickle down, but trickle through effect, isn't it?
That's a really great point, and I have noticed, obviously I'm committed to getting more women and people of color into the angel investing world. Mm-hmm. And I have noticed, and the hope is that the more that we see women and people of color at the table, that also encourages women entrepreneurs and people of color entrepreneurs to step up to the plate and to pitch. What's interesting, Robin, is that there was this whole assumption in terms of, the very often used term pattern recognition, and this reminds me of a very prominent white male VC who was interviewed a few years ago and asked, what do you look for when you invest in a startup? And he very nonchalantly said, someone who looks like me. Oh. I'm really glad he said it aloud, because a lot of people are thinking about it. And so my whole take was, let's get more of us on the investing side, because we'll probably be more open, to people who look like us.
Yes.
And that's really, it's great that women are, being philanthropic. My goal was to get more women to also consider making an impact by investing in women entrepreneurs in exchange for equity.
Well, your effort, your goal, your vision is quite important. And let's, before we go, say the website so that people can find you after the program.
Yeah, so our website is pipelinefellowship.com, and we have a call for applications open currently for our fall 2013 angel investing boot camps in Chicago, LA, and San Francisco. And our third round due date is in July 31, 2013. And to learn more and apply, people can go to our website, which is pipelinefellowship.com. As people know, entrepreneurs are everywhere and capital isn't, so we're looking to continue expanding our program so we can convert more women angels and in different geographies where women entrepreneurs are in existence and perhaps they're not yet connected to capital.
Thank you so much for being with us today, and congratulations on the work you do.
Thank you, Robin.
And we need to pause for a break here. I'm Robin Morgan, here with Women's Media Center Live. Coming up, a woman devoted to ending the death penalty in the United States, and just how that's making progress. After Hurricane Sandy, parts of the East Coast have returned to normal, but others won't see normal again for quite some time. One group getting volunteers and aid supplies to those who need it is called Occupy Sandy. Made up of a coalition of Occupy Wall Street activists, community organizers, and technologists, Occupy Sandy is using social media and other software tools to identify and quickly respond to urgent needs among the hardest-hit communities. You can help. To donate or to volunteer, visit occupysandy.org.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 AM, a CBS station.
And we're back. Question: what costs exorbitantly, is ineffective in deterring crime, makes horrific mistakes, is random, racist, uncivilized, and anti-human rights, among other things? Answer: the death penalty. Our next guest, Diann Rust-Tierney, is dedicated to changing all that. Welcome, Diann, to Women's Media Center Live.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you as a guest. You started out, of course, in the women's movement. We produce these terrific women and then send them out into the world to change the world. You were engaged in litigation and public policy advocacy on women's rights at the National Women's Law Center, right?
That's correct.
And
I learned so much from that experience that I've tried to carry forward here.
Well, it seems like you definitely did so. Bring us up to speed on where we are with the death penalty in this country. I want to say one personal thing first, which is that it's a thrill to talk with you because my very first political activism, even before I got involved in the civil rights movement, as a very young woman, was against the death penalty. It was the Carol Chessman case. He was convicted of rape, and it was a celebrated case. And I went and stood with a candle and stood vigil that night. And it was, I think I must have been 18, 17, something like that. And it was my first political act. So here we are. Sometime later, with this country still regressed in the tradition of Saudi Arabia almost, and one of the few countries that still uses the death penalty. Tell me how we're changing. Give me some good news and tell me what we do next.
Well, first I want to thank you for that personal action because that really is why we're where we are today. Every individual can really make a difference, and that's why we're seeing the death penalty really in decline. The death penalty is on its way out. We have now seen 6 states in 6 years repeal the death penalty.
Yes.
Overall, executions are down, death sentences are down. Jurors are actually voting with their feet because they're very concerned about the way the system is working, that they know about the risk of innocent people being executed. They know about the race discrimination and the application of the death penalty. Mm-hmm. And so we are really on our way to seeing an end to what I think you've already noted is really a stain on the United States human rights record.
Well, you must be doing some amazing education work because more people now seem to know what at one point it seemed like 5 people knew, which is that it's not a deterrent. And there have been some gutsy stands taken by a few people in power. Who was it? The governor of Ohio, who, as he was leaving office, just unilaterally pardoned everybody on death row in that state. I can't remember to be sure, but there have been stands taken like that. So you must be doing amazing education.
We have been. The facts are stubborn things, and I think as we look at the number of people who've been exonerated from death row, and there's an organization called Witness to Innocence that's actually made up of people who were on death row who were released because of innocence. Mm-hmm. When people look at the face of somebody who sat on death row for decades, only by luck to have been released and saved, that makes a difference. Mm-hmm. When people see that we don't have the resources to invest in crime prevention and mental health services, and we still continue to seek the executions of a handful of people, that raises questions. But you made an important point. Leadership is so important, and that's something we've seen happen in states like Maryland, where Governor O'Malley said that he had concerns about the death penalty and really led that state on an effort to really examine the practice. And when we examine the practice, the public is really quite clear that the death penalty needs to go. So we're optimistic, but we can't be complacent. Everybody's got to get involved in this.
Right. Yeah. It's almost as if the country is growing up, out of vengeful adolescence or something, and becoming slightly civilized. The leadership factor has changed, I think, also in that it used to be, how shall I put this, sort of passive. You would have governors who were clearly against the death penalty but wouldn't say so for political reasons, and there just would happen to be no executions during their term. But now you have a few coming out and actually taking stands. How can the average person who wants to do something about this make an effect?
Well, I think they can connect to us because our role is really to bring all the people who agree that it's time for the death penalty to end together and then get involved in this campaign. Mm-hmm. We are working state by state with our affiliates around the country, and so the first thing you can do is to go to our website, which is ncadp.org, and sign up to be part of our action team. You can get information. I mean, you have to get involved. Mm-hmm. The public has enormous power, and the public has enormous wisdom. And when presented with the facts, it knows that we should be moving away from the death penalty. So I think get involved, get your friends involved, get your family involved, and that first step of political action that you took needs to be really the model for everybody.
Two quick questions. One, what, if anything, is the role of women in this, Diann? Have we disaggregated the statistics in terms of favoring or against the death penalty? I would imagine, I would pretty much stake my life on it, in fact, that more women are against it than men.
Well, we are very wise, and we see the complexity of the issues. And so it's no surprise that women see, as a group, we see the opportunity cost. We see when there's a lack of investment in education. We see when there's a lack of investment in healthcare. We see the connections. And so women have a particular voice in this. And I'm really excited to be doing this program because I really, I'm a woman making this stand, and I need my sisters behind me on this. And we can really make a difference. And I think our impact on this issue and how we deal with these very complex issues is very important. So our voice needs to be heard. And one of the reasons that I think that the system is as flawed as it is that too many important voices have been locked out, women and people of color. So this is a great opportunity for us to have an impact not only on the death penalty, but on the criminal justice system as a whole.
Yes, exactly, because, of course, it's interlinked. The other thing I wanted to ask you was how much do you think that the discovery and the wider use of DNA now to prove innocence, the Innocence Project and those various projects, have had on the change in consciousness?
I think it has had a big impact because people now understand in a very concrete way that the system can make mistakes. And so I think that scientific, proof that we can make mistakes has really jolted folks, and to the point where when a juror sits in that jury box, it has to decide whether that person that was sitting in front of them should live or die. They remember that maybe I don't have all the information. Maybe there's DNA evidence that I may not have known about. Maybe there's some mistake. And so I think that's one of the reasons that we're seeing executions go down and death sentences go down. And I think that's one of the reasons that prosecutors aren't seeking it, because they're not investing this enormous amount of political capital and financial capital in cases that they're not going to win.
Aha. True. Well, it's wonderful work that you're doing. This is the National Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty. And say again the website?
ncadp.org.
And you can go on the website and find out lots more. And thank you so much, Diann, for the work that you've done all along and are still doing and have yet to do. You're not off the hook. And for being with us today on Women's Media Center Live. Thanks so much.
It has been my pleasure.
And now it's time for the Surrealism Corner, which this week could be subtitled Murder by Manolos, as in Manolo Blahniks, as in shoes. So we're back to Texas. The Houston police charged a 44-year-old woman with having stabbed her 59-year-old boyfriend to death with a stiletto heel during an argument. The man apparently had suffered multiple stab wounds to the head, and she is going to stand trial. Apparently, it's not the first time that a stiletto heel has been used as a weapon. In 2011, a 33-year-old woman in northern England was charged with stabbing a man through the eye with a stiletto heel. Now, this got me to thinking. For about 40 years or so, the women's movement has been saying, heels are not good for you. They're like the contemporary version of bound feet, particularly the ones with the little pointy toes that make your toes sort of like calves being stuck in cages for veal. And you can't kick with them. They're not good and but it's very, very hard to get women to stop wearing heels, myself included, because I'm very short. And whenever I go to fundraise or want to be stately, there's heels. women who work as servers at the Foxwoods Resort Casino in Connecticut have been negotiating their first union contract, and they've made heels an issue because heels are required by the resort, and the women say they're painful and their foot deforming, and it's ridiculous. And they've brought in a podiatrist, a foot doctor, on their side to help in the negotiation, and he tends to show high-heel patients a cartoon of an elephant standing with all 4 feet on a thumbtack. He says it equals the pressure when you wear a 4-inch heel over an extended period of time. Or to use another image, it's like driving your car all on one wheel. So this really got me thinking, how do we make heels less erotic and less important for women? Well, one way is to have the whole society turn against them, which means men turning against them, which means repositioning them as weapons. Because, in fact, if you take off your heel and you stab somebody through the eye, preferably a man who's assaulting you, it really gives you a different take on Manolo Blahniks. So I say, if you're going to wear heels, or you're going to wear those crazy platform things that give you, broken ankles, then at least use it as a weapon. And let's pretend to men that we're doing so, whether we are or not. We could go around saying, you have to pry my Jimmy Choos from my cold, dead hand. Break time. This is Women's Media Center Live, and last time I looked, I was still Robin Morgan. When we come back, we'll talk with an expert on agriculture who happens to be a fine writer. Don't go away.
When it comes to talk radio, men still do most of the talking. It doesn't get too much better if you look at television, newspapers, film, video games, social media, literature, sports, and corporate or technology leadership. The Women's Media Center's Status of Women in the U.S. Media 2013 report details the persistent gender disparity in a range of media institutions that rank among the greatest influencers in American society. To read the full report, go to womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 AM, a CBS station.
And we're back with a woman who has written novels and short stories, plus an important memoir and other nonfiction, and a musical, and a Peabody Award-winning TV documentary, She's Nobody's Baby. But today, Susan Dworkin is not talking literature. She's talking agriculture. Welcome to the program, Susan. Welcome to Women's Media Center Live.
It's great to be here, Robin. Wonderful to be on the show.
I have known you for some years now, and always known you as a writer, like an MVP on a baseball team, a writer who can play all positions, because you've done fiction, superb fiction, I think. I love your short stories. You've done novels, you've done nonfiction, political work, plays, and I always wondered why at the occasional dinner party you could hold forth so intelligently and so non-rhetorically and really educatively about whether it was Frankenfoods or world hunger or agriculture. And so I've learned, doing a little due diligence here, that you did early stints earlier in your career at the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Yeah,
and
I graduated from college in the era when John Kennedy said that you had to do something for your country. And there were those of us who took that seriously. It's hard for young people to believe that we took anything that the government said seriously back in those days, but we really did. He said, what can you do for your country? And I, for reasons that I don't quite understand and can't really explain, ended up working in Washington at the United States Department of Agriculture. It was my first job out of school. I worked at the USDA in a time when things were dramatically changing in agriculture in this country. People who had owned little family farms forever and ever and ever were being driven out of business. Agriculture was getting very big and very international. There were reasons for that, which are historic, like the Russian wheat deal and the advent of Earl Butz, who was a U.S. Secretary of Agriculture and a terrible racist and a man who drove the system towards bigness. And a lot of people went out of business, and I eventually changed directions and went to work in other places. But the fascination with agriculture, with what I saw in terms of the impact on people's lives, of farming and of not farming, the loss of connection to the land, what that meant in terms of the soul of the country. That all of that stayed with me. And when I worked as a journalist, I would go abroad and I would do stories about agriculture, dams and sugar beet plantations in Iran, and all kinds of experimental plantations in Turkey. And it stayed with me and stayed with me. I never lost touch with it. And when I could get back to it, I wrote The Viking in the Wheat Field about Bent Skolkmond and saving seeds, and The Farm Bill, which is a play.
I was just going to mention them. Yes.
Yeah. That's what happened to me. I simply never lost that explosive passion.
Well, I'm very glad that you picked up your pen, because you're a gift to literature. But I'm awfully glad also that you never lost that passion, because I think most people feel agriculture ho-hum. And just listening to you, it occurs to me we should coin a word, like they say, geopolitical and geoeconomic. We should say the phrase agropolitical.
Agropolitical. That's me. I'm an agropolitical.
Well, and I don't mean only to define you, but what about the agropolitical analysis of the situation? Right. Is drought setting in? What will that do to that region? All of the obvious once you think about it, but I don't think about it that much. Vandana.
We don't think about it. We don't think about it if we live in urban and suburban places. And we also don't think about it because there are so few farmers. It used to be, even when I was a kid, that every American family had somebody, some uncle or somebody, who had some connection to farming.
Sure.
There was something, your grandparents, something in the background, so that you had some inkling that there was a direct relationship between what you were sitting down to eat and the production of it. And that has gone away. Now...
it's agribusiness.
Yeah, I think that the latest figure is that 2% of the farms in this country produce 75% of the food.
Oh, wow.
It's astonishing. And not only are there fewer and fewer farmers, but they're older and older.
Yeah, well, and they're killing themselves, or just selling the farm, or being driven out, or
Susie, don't want to go into that business, right?
What? Yeah, they don't want to go into the family business. They want to move to the city and work in industry. Susie, what should the average principled progressive consumer? What can an individual do? Because sometimes it seems overwhelming.
I think that the first thing that everybody should do is have some experience of farming. If you can't do it in your own life, I think that it would be a wonderful thing if kids took a gap year and worked on somebody's organic farm. There's plenty of young farmers who need the help.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be an effort by individual American families to reconnect with the farm, because the biggest problem that we have is that the consumer and the farmer are not always on the same side.
Right.
It's sad to say, but the truth is that Monsanto and BASF and Dow and Syngenta, all these big life science companies which are producing all these new seeds and all these new processes, have been very good for the farmer.
Mm-hmm.
They've made the sugar beet farmers, for example, fought so hard for acceptance of genetic modification in sugar beets because it helps them.
Sure. Sure.
It helps them. It makes them richer. It makes their lives easier. They can send their kids to college too.
Sure. Susie, what about frankenfoods? I mean, we're scared to death. We hear about them and we think, oh God, I'm not going in near anything that's genetically altered. Then we hear, well, they're only genetically altered, to make them not spoil during shippage. Then we hear, so we think, okay. Then we hear that they have fish genes in vegetables. Fish. So you think of your vegetables swimming through the. So how do we know?
First of all, I think that it's almost impossible to know because both sides lie.
Oh, great.
The big companies exaggerate the beneficence of their products, and the far left, sad to say, often exaggerates the evil. And so the honest broker, the individual consumer, is kind of stuck between. There's a number of people who are good to listen to.
Oh,
on this.
tell us.
Michael Pollan is one of them.
Who is?
Michael Pollan is one of them.
Uh-huh.
A great man, in my opinion. And there's a wonderful website, a blog, I think, called Big Picture Agriculture by a woman. It's written by a woman named Kay McDonald. And she's a middle-of-the-roader. She says a lot of anti-GM activism is justified, and I believe that, too. I think that we should have labeling. We must have labeling.
Yeah.
On the other hand, she says, and I believe this, no amount of activism is going to take genetic modification and some of its good stuff away from the farmers who need it desperately. There's a big difference. I think the public has to understand that there's a big difference between genetic modification and plant breeding. If you
of course.
Are cooking up a new kind of wheat, you're Dr. Benziger at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and you're trying to breed wheat for the new world in which there's not going to be enough water. So you want like a drought-resistant wheat. And you're mixing this kind of wheat and that kind of wheat, and you're crossbreeding and back-crossing. That's plant breeding. When you are the Monsanto Corporation and you are imbuing every seed with a resistance to a chemical which you are producing to kill weeds, that's genetic modification.
I have never really got that until this moment. Listen, we've got only about a minute left, but tell me something. Given your considerable talents as a writer, and that you've written on this before, I know, but is there another book in the making, a Susie Dworkin book? I'll nag you about more fiction at another time, but about this subject too, because you're uniquely capable of making it clear to a large group of people, and we need it.
I'm working on a novel now which is aimed at younger people, not infants, but, people under 50, who called The Commons, which is about takes place about 150 years in the future, and all the bad things that we say are going to happen have happened.
Oh, wow.
And the world is pulling itself back out again into some kind of rational relationship with the land.
Wow. So it is about both the subject and fiction. Oh, great. All right. Will you promise to come back on the show when it comes out?
Will.
Oh,
I certainly will.
That's wonderful.
It's been a pleasure, Robin. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much, Susie. And it's time for another brief pause here on Women's Media Center Live, where I remain steadfastly Robin Morgan. When we come back, we'll dive into the world of Women 2.0. And if you don't know what that is, you'll want to stay with us. If you do know, it's a sure thing you'll be listening in just a minute.
Want to stay informed when there are changes to Social Security? Subscribe to receive automatic email updates on popular Social Security web pages with the click of a button. Just visit www.socialsecurity.gov/GOV delivery. More than 1 million people already receive updates to the pages they're most interested in. You can too. Look for the red envelope followed by a link that says Get Email Updates. To learn more, visit www.socialsecurity.gov/GOV delivery. Social Security delivers.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 AM, a CBS station.
And we are back again. We pay special attention on this show to women and technology as an issue, because the latter is changing the world, and the former is uniquely, historically capable of saving it. Well, our next guest, Shaherose Charania, is one of the women intent on doing both. Welcome, Shaherose, to Women's Media Center Live.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You, as the co-founder and the CEO and president of Women 2.0, seem to have constructed what everyone thinks is a dire necessity for women at this point in history, because the IT revolution has been moving so fast and because women have been kept out in certain areas. You are like the feminist geek of all feminist geeks. How did you come to found Women 2.0 and create this thing that it now is today, which is a very powerful presence?
It's a really good question. It was such an organic process that even today we're still catching up with ourselves and realizing what we've created. So this was back in 2005. I had just moved to Silicon Valley from Canada and started going to networking events and realized, oh, this is strange. I'm the only woman in the room here. So I started to notice that, guys are funding their guy friends, and also in parallel noticed the trend of how emerging markets were growing through women starting companies, but thinking about the future going forward, it would be kind of odd to think that, in the Western world, that wasn't really happening. So with those two sort of trends in mind, sought to create just something simple, local in Silicon Valley, because Silicon Valley is the mecca of the future in terms of technology, and we know that everything is going to be touched by technology, and, we knew that in 2005. So we started Women 2.0. A little bit, the first thing we did was in April 2006, and we said, well, what we're going to do is once a month we'll do something. It'll be a networking event, maybe at our house. It'll be a small conference, or it'll be a workshop or something. And so the we is the funny question too. Is there really three women who were introduced to a guy who had told us, you know what, you should do something for women. He just, at the time, was working at Facebook and said, you guys need to do something. It was kind of this empty statement, and we were very confused, but that's how it all started. And we went from doing things in our own houses, for 5 years, we did this on the side. We did this as a side project, and only 2 years ago, we built this into a business and now have staff and people all around the world doing all sorts of great things for the mission of increasing the number of female founders of technology startups.
Wow. And among the offshoots, well, they're not offshoots, they're projects, I guess, or products of 2.0. There's the Women 2.0 blog network. There's which is both in Spanish and in English, Brava. There's Founder Friday, a networking event to promote the creation of new networks among aspiring entrepreneurs. There's Pitch, an annual startup competition for early-stage technology startups across the web. There's the conference, which is now famous or infamous, I suppose, if you're a male supremacist. And there's video interviews. And then there's Founder Labs. I'm reading from your website, a 5-week fabulous pre-incubator focused on the first phase of launching a startup, and you head that as well. So you're like a wonderful octopus with many arms, and clearly women are flocking to Women 2.0.
Indeed. And so these are all things that evolved over the years that we've been sort of building Women 2.0. The blog network only came about 2 years ago. Founder Friday is something we've done informally for many years. It's meant to be a local networking event where people build sort of, relationships and community, men and women together. And the conference we've done since 2007 every year, which has included the pitch competition as well. And so, things have been adding on, and we've been doing sort of following the approach that we teach our startups, which is to be driven by our customers. And so we listen to what the female founders are looking for, and we build new products accordingly. We're actually going to be launching some new products on July 1, so we're excited about that.
Wow. And you're heading Founder Labs as well as being the CEO of the whole thing, right?
Yeah. It's we did a whole year of programs for Founder Labs. Right now, we haven't done anything in 2013, but looking to do something in 2014. But companies have spun out from that have gone on to get funding from Y Combinator, have gone on to get funding from Draper Fisher Serviceman. A bunch of other companies have been growing out of that little program that we started. Again, a lot of things we do just for fun because we think people need them and they become real.
Yeah, but you're doing it out of joy, and I think that's probably contagious.
Absolutely.
What was your own background? I know it was geeky. Your bio on the website says at heart you're a mobile and telephony junkie. But what led you to do this particularly?
Sure. So I've been passionate about technology, I would say, since my first year of university. I read this book called The Free Trade Manifesto, which predicted the future of what the world would be like with the internet, and it was pretty much on par. And when I read that book, I said I wanted to be a part of this wave of innovation. And so I studied business and did a minor in management science, so it's a management information studies minor, and so I learned a lot about technology. Light level coding, but not a crazy coder. But my background has evolved into product management, product marketing, and product design. So, going from sort of blank sheet of paper to prototype to launching a brand new product and doing the first design is sort of where I thrive the most. And mobile has been an interest of mine. One of the startups I worked at the longest, was focused on sort of VoIP services, and eventually got bought by Telefonica. So it's just, I care about connecting people, and for that reason, mobile makes sense to me.
Yeah, clearly you do, and do it effectively. One of the things that I find especially appealing is that you are helping women develop startups, so that there will be more of you. In a sense, you're cloning women's presence online. What's been the reaction from the pale males in Silicon Valley?
Mostly embracing. I love that you said the pale male.
Well, they're white boys. It's a white boys culture. That anybody who is black or brown, whoa, even if they're male, and anybody who's female, no matter what color she comes in, is suspect. So I'm very interested as to, clearly you had to be twice as good as them for them to take you on board at all with respect.
Yeah, so basically, it's been, I think, two things. It's been sort of eye-opening for them to meet companies that are as good as the companies they're used to funding. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, what it was, it's really been a supporting culture. They said, hey, we realize that diversity leads to better innovation. And we also realize that the most powerful demographic online and offline, from a user perspective and a consumer perspective, are women. Therefore, we need to change things. Yeah, so it's been embracing from a business standpoint, no doubt. So I think, it's been positive. I mean, there's people who will never change, but that's because they're of an old school mentality. Yeah. But most of the people have entirely embraced us, and they support us in a big way.
That's encouraging, and that also means that you must be damn good. And intrepid, and totally intrepid, We've only got about a minute left. Give the website and tell people if they want to get in touch, is there any particular way they should go about it?
Absolutely. So the website is womenchew.com. That's the number 2. And there's many ways to get in touch. I would say look up the cities, click on the button that says Founder Friday, and check what city we're in. We're in 19 cities around the world, and we do monthly networking events every first Friday of the month called Founder Friday. So it's a great way to meet the local community. And in November, we're doing another conference, this time in Las Vegas, November 14th and 15th. Another great way to connect to the community, connect to investors. So you can check that out on the website as well. Then, of course, just subscribe to the newsletter and get information every week into your inbox on cool articles that are written by women who are starting companies, by investors. You can get the latest trends. You can get some advice, get some inspiration. And, that's what we're here to do, is to help more people innovate. So whether you're working in a startup, working at a tech company, or starting your own company, we're here for you.
You got it covered. Oh, congratulations on the success of this, and congratulations for all the hard work and the vision that went into it.
Thank you so much.
And now it's time for fighting words. June 21st was not only the summer solstice, it was the third year that the United Nations observed International Widows' Day. Yeah. There are more widows than ever before in the world due to armed conflict, due to the HIV/AIDS pandemic, and to the age difference between partners in many cultures, with child marriage, with little girls being married off to much older men. There's a lot of 9, 10, 11-year-old child widows who the rest of their lives are destroyed. Many widows are denied rights, they're subjected to abuse, they're evicted from their homes, they're not permitted to own property or land. They're forced into exploitative work to support themselves and their families. An estimated 115 million widows currently live in poverty, and 81 million have suffered physical abuse, some from members of their own family. Young widows, who are the child brides that I mentioned earlier, face enormous risk with almost no protection. And of course, they're still expected to perform their duties as mothers, caregivers, heads of household. In other words, all of the responsibility and none of the power. In some countries, they're handed to brothers-in-law, ostensibly for their protection, where they become second or third or fourth wives. In Japan, the nickname for a widow is tatami mat. In other words, something you wipe your feet on, something that has no other use. Now, if you live in the global north or in a wealthy country, widowhood can mean something very different. In many cases, the merry widow fits. Women in the United States, for example, who face widowhood, often blossom after the death of a spouse. They inherit a little money. They decide to go back to work. They go back to school. They join a social justice movement. They travel. They live longer without men. Men, on the other hand, when they're widowers, live briefer without women. In any event, for most of the world, few states of female existence so expose the vitriol of patriarchal attitudes as widowhood. And that's it for this week. You've been listening to us on CBS station 1580 AM radio in Washington, D.C., and on the web at WMClive.com. Remember, email us at womensmediacenterlive@gmail.com, #WMCLive. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here don't represent the WMC. Here is the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and for this program, Executive Producer Julie Burton, Senior Producer Crystal Williams Chancellor, Technical Director Michelle Kinsey Bruns, and our founding sponsor, Regina Kulik Scully. I'm Robin Morgan. Thanks for being with us. Join us next week when, well, actually, I'm not going to tell you. Let it be a surprise, a really interesting surprise, here on Women's Media Center Live.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 AM, a CBS station.